One of the biggest realizations I had on my own personal development was when I realized I'm not my mind. So the mind's just a thought generation machine, and it's going to generate thoughts based on our past experiences, and it's often just reacting to disturbances. So it's trying to make us feel okay. If we feel okay, the mind will quieten down. If we think things aren't okay, the mind will come up with ways to try and fix it. So imagine it like there's a rock gets thrown into a lake and it creates a ripple effect. That's a thought coming up, right? And what we do is the mind goes, oh, there's a rock that's been thrown in, there's ripples, let's dive in to get the rock. And as a result of diving in, the mind getting involved, it makes this big splash, which makes the problems infinitely bigger. So we create this big mess by the mind trying to solve problems that aren't problems. And when you see this, you're like, oh my God, well, if I didn't get the mind to solve problems, what would happen? So I'll talk about that in a second, but first there's 3 things that the mind tries to do. There's 3 kind of ways you can try and solve your problems. The first one, which is the hardest, is you try and get the external world to meet your expectations. So if everything's good, if no one says the wrong things, I have the right success in life, I'm happy. So you try and make the external world match your internal stuff, put a box around yourself. If everything stays good, I'm good. That's the hardest way, and just to break the news, it doesn't work. It can never work long enough because the external world's always going to hit your stuff at some point. So that way fails. The second way people try to make themselves feel good is to try to slow the process, or stop the process, or undo the negative part of the process. So if you look at how, like, say, monks do, like, go into meditation, they'll go to a monastery where there's no distractions, and they've realized that the external world hits their stuff. So if I control the external world enough, I can get this mind to quieten down. So they remove all the inputs coming in, and they end up just like meditating. So they control the outside to control the inside, and they almost like willing themselves into thinking positively or not thinking negatively. So again, this one works if you want to just meditate in a mountain for the rest of your life, but it doesn't work very well in the real world because things are going to happen that's going to come and hit your stuff. So what do? You're left with one option, and the only option that actually works is to allow the process to unfold. Allow your mind, the thought generating machine, to come up with things, for emotions to come up, and just to watch them, to observe them and not get sucked into them. It's really key. Like, you need to realize that you are not your mind, you are not your thoughts, you are the consciousness behind. Okay, so because you're the consciousness behind, you can observe the process in front. Most people don't use this function of their brain because they're so in their thoughts. They put their consciousness on their mind and become their mind. And when you meditate and you get present, get clear, you realize, wait a second, I'm not my mind. I can actually observe my mind, and if I didn't listen to my mind, what would happen? Now, coming from a very analytical background, being a poker player myself, this caused a lot of ideas to kind of come from my head, like what would work, how would it work if your mind wasn't solving problems? Because you get used to the analytical brain solving problems. So you've got to look at the 2 ways the mind works. One, it's like a computer, and it's thoughts that you generate yourself. So thoughts that you generate, like solving problems, that's a good function of the brain. I'm not saying the brain's not really good, but when you're using it, that's good. But that only happens about 5% of the time. 95% of the time, thoughts just come at random, which you don't control, which are based on your past experiences, your insecurities, and trying to make you feel okay. Those 95% you don't want to listen to. So you basically want to get past listening to your mind. So then it comes to the kind of fork in the road, and you go, well, what would happen if I didn't listen to my mind? Who's in charge? Who's going to make decisions? And you realize you've got this thing called consciousness, which is infinitely more intelligent. So you hear athletes or artists or any high-level people say they got into the zone, they got into a flow-like state, and they performed at their best, at their peak state. What happens in those states? When you look into their brain, what happens is the thinking part of their brain gets shut down, and they become present in the moment. When you shut the brain off and you can actually just experience the moment, you've got every tool you need to handle that to the best of your ability. You think that the mind's going to solve the problems, and using the analytical part to control things, you will handle situations better. But if you found a way to get past that to consciousness, you find yourself going into flow states, going into the zone, and you realize, actually, I can not only just deal with stuff, I can handle the moment infinitely better by being in the moment and not trying to control it with the mind. So a long process to go through with myself, like literally spending hundreds of hours like on this concept and realizing that, wait a second, I'm not my mind, so what am I? Tough one. I'm consciousness. Okay, so how does that look? To get to consciousness, you've got to stop the mind. So what I'm trying to get across here is that there's a process going on, and you can either try and get control the external world to match your process. You can try and change the process, stop the process happening, or you can just remove yourself enough from the process to watch it. And what happens? Something magical happens when you watch the process. When you don't get sucked into the process of the brain, all these problems and disturbance stuff coming up, they start quieting down. Because the mind's like, oh, he's got this covered. He's got this covered. So all those worries, all those things you're trying to quieten down, the more you listen to them, the more you try and solve them with your brain, it makes it worse. So you're trying to solve the problem by the problem. It's like someone sticking a sharp object into your arm and going, I'm gonna remove this object. I'm gonna remove this object for you. So this is the brain. The brain stuck the sharp object in your arm, and the brain's gonna go, if we remove this object, I'm gonna feel okay. And you go, okay. The brain then removes the sharp object. You're like, oh my God, yes, I feel okay. Brain, you're so clever. Thank you for solving that. It's like the brain did it too. The brain caused the problem, and then the brain tries to create it. In reality, like there's no problems that we don't create in the mind. Every problem is created in the mind. So once you learn to get present, understand that the mind's not the thing that solves your problems. You've actually got a smarter intelligence behind that. If you can just slow things down enough to watch the process and not become the process, your whole life will change like that.